There's a lot of fear mongering online about software development jobs disappearing right now. Now, obviously, this isn't true, but I wanted to rest your guys' anxiety by proving and debunking why all of these claims are wrong so you guys can be confident about the future of this field. Now, the first claim is that there are no more jobs left in software engineering. If you look at the graph on the left, the graph suggests that we have lost a tremendous amount of software engineers post-COVID. It does seem pretty bad, but I assure you guys, that's not the full story. First of all, while most people who say and use this graph claim are completely neglecting the fact that the graph goes beyond and backwards from 2022. This is what the graph actually looks like. And if you look at where our graph cut off, it's right here. It looks like it's going down if you only have a viewpoint of right here, but as you can tell, there's so much more history to the careers in software engineering that just aren't addressed. Now, if you actually look at the graph from a wider viewpoint, you can tell that there's a lot of fluctuation, but clearly there is still a general trend upwards. While COVID definitely kind of rocked the scene a bit, had a tremendous spike and then a tremendous drop, it doesn't mean that software engineering as a title and career is dead. If you're dedicated to getting into software engineering, it's still a completely viable career. You'll have to work probably just as hard as any other job, but if you have to compare it to any other job, arguably, for the amount of money you might get in the career, it is still one of the best options. And one more thing that I'll address later, you'll notice that there's actually a little bit of an increase the last 3 years. I'll go into that in more detail in a bit. Now, the second claim in the industry is that there's a lot of huge tech layoffs right now, and so that's an indicator of the overall market. I'm not going to delve into this too much because there's actually a really simple reason for this, which is that a lot of these employees at some of the big tech companies weren't really working, but really just taking availability of all the amenities. The truth is that a lot of these guys were not doing anything useful, and their position at the company was never really going to be a lasting position. So when they got fired, it was just the company returning to its baseline amount of employees. Why there were so many positions, I couldn't tell you why. I don't know why they got hired in the first place, but clearly they overhired a lot of these companies and now they're having to refix that. On top of that, a lot of companies are anticipating that AI is going to replace developers soon, so they started firing a lot of their employees off in that kind of hope that they could just save the cost of hiring someone with AI. Obviously, this wasn't true, and a lot of companies found out the hard way that it's not actually the case. If you've seen the recent news with the Duolingo CEO, you'll know that that plan completely failed and he had to resend his entire message, and he's still doing damage control to this day because of how stupid it sounded. If you remember the graph from earlier and you remember the slight increase I was noting to at some point, I think that a lot of companies are starting to realize they need to bring back employees because AI cannot replace them, and I think that's why we're starting to see a return to baseline as companies start rehiring employees. Now, the third claim, and I already touched on this briefly, was that AI will replace developers in the future. Not now, but in the future. They think that when AI gets better, it can actually replace developers. So a lot of companies are holding out for that. Now, the third claim is that AI will replace developers. I know I touched on this earlier, but that was for now. I'm talking about companies holding out for later when AI does get better. Now, obviously, this also isn't true, and a lot of companies have started to realize this the hard way. If you've seen the recent Twitter guy, I think his name was Wes Winder right there, he fired his entire dev team and replaced them with AI, and it's not seen in this tweet, but quite quickly after he realized just how stupid that was, and now he is completely suffering for that terrible blunder of his. There's also the CEO of NVIDIA, who also claimed that AI will replace developers. He made that huge bold claim and got the news all stirred up, but then the truth came out, and the truth is that AI can output above senior level code, and it probably can get close to perfect in the future. But AI is not a senior developer. There's just so much more a developer does than just writing code. And as our friend quickly found out, that wasn't true. He had to rescind that entire statement and go back and do some damage control. And on top of that, people started to realize that if any one man was going to benefit from AI replacing developers, it was probably going to be the guy who was the CEO of the company distributing GPU cards. So, just saying. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think developers who use AI will get ahead, but don't get me wrong on that statement too. Vibe coders will get left behind. This is an image of me from 3-4 years ago, back when GPT 3.5 came out and back when AI was starting to become prominent, where I vibe coded my entire backend of PHP because I wanted to get ahead of everyone else in my class. Now, obviously I did. I won the competition, and I essentially got away by just using AI to write my code for me, and it was great for 1 year. And then 1 year later, I was still at the skill level as I was a year ago, and everyone else was now a year ahead of me, and they were catching up to my capabilities just vibe coding, but they could do it themselves. So if they were using AI, they were a lot better than me. Huge blunder on my end. I had to go back and basically nerf myself and try and learn the entirety of PHP again because I tried to vibe code. Please don't make the mistake I did. Please learn code the proper way. But if you use AI to help you learn, I think that is the best way in 2025 to learn as a developer. Now, before you guys click out this video, I do want to give you my predictions because I do genuinely want you guys to leave this video with a positive mindset on the market. So if you are aware, there's a lot of fear right now about going into the market just based off how much people are saying, don't go into CS, don't go into coding. It's a bad profession right now. AI is going to replace everyone. I think this is one of the best times to get into coding just because of that. Think about it. If there's that much people not going to CS that usually would, and there's such a steep decrease in CS majors and people doing boot camps and self-teaching themselves, there's going to be a sudden and incredible demand, in my opinion, for developers that's just going to emerge out of nowhere. And I think that might be the best time to suddenly be in coding because you're going to have a much higher market and your value is going to be higher and you're going to get paid a lot more. And also, what the data doesn't usually show is that a lot of these companies listed on these graphs are only big companies. A lot of small companies are not listed and they have a lot of market share too. Think about it. Every company you see in your area needs to have some sort of online presence nowadays because today is 2025. So they need a developer to code for them. They need a developer to do something for them. And they usually aren't listed on all these graphs. So if you're worried about getting into the industry and you think that there is no jobs for junior developers, try a small company. Settle down for 2 or 3 years. It's a lot easier to get into them because they have much lower requirements. They'll take practically anyone. And then after you got experience, it'll be far easier to get a big company job and you'll know what you're doing because you'll have a far more robust learning time. Hopefully you've realized all the fear mongering is just clickbait and it's not as bad as it seems. If you guys want to join a community of people who have a positive mindset on the market and actually are trying to get into a job instead of just worrying about it, I have a Discord in the description. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video.